Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the United We Stand podcast. This is the first episode on gun control and interpretations of the Second Amendment. I'm Will, and my general belief is that guns shouldn't be regulated except to violent criminals, but they should be recorded for safety purposes.
Hi, I'm Shreya, and for my views on guns, I'm not totally against guns, nor do I want to ban them in general. I just think there should be some laws surrounding it so it's not exactly a free for all.
Alright, so let's start with reasons for and against gun control. So, I don't think that guns should be regulated except if you are like a violent criminal. And I mean, I can see that, like, you know, if you get rid of who can have access to guns, then obviously, like, shootings are going to go down and, like, people who are, like, as a result. But you can't ever completely get rid of guns. Like, that's not going to be a thing that can happen just because it's written into the Constitution. And while I have something here from the U.S. Department of Justice, and it says that while, according to the FBI, of homicides, 57% of all homicides are with handguns. And so you getting rid of what people want to get rid of, which are typically like heavy firearms and rapid fire, isn't going to prevent that, because that's still 57% of murders which are happening with handguns, which are pretty much universally agreed on that people should be allowed to have.
Yeah. Also, for like machine guns and stuff, I'm pretty sure machine guns you can't. It's really hard to have them, and if it's manufactured after like 1986, you're not even like allowed to have them like a regular citizen. So I don't think that's like the main issue here. I don't think it's like machine guns, like you said, around 50% of it's handguns. And when most people think about getting a gun for like self defense, they think of a handgun, not like a assault rifle and stuff.
Yeah.
I also agree with the only for violent criminals because I feel like if we extend it to like all criminals and we have like non-violent criminals, like let's say someone went to jail for like weed or something, it's not they're not like a menace to society if they had a gun or anything. And then there's also the fact that some groups of people are disproportionately affected by like, going to jail and stuff. So then it would be targeting certain people if we put those type of laws in place.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And also for the violent crimes, I think it's really important to hit on that and stuff like people who are like have a history of domestic violence and stuff because guns really help that happen and go on. So I feel like those are the people we need to really focus on when we're talking about gun violence because it's not like everyday it's not like me or you. It's like people who are have had histories of it. That's who we need to like think about more than like drug dealer. Not a drug dealer, but like like a high school drug kid.
Yeah. And so you were saying that you think that there should be regulation, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Do you mean like you shouldn't be able to have access to certain guns? Do you think that certain people shouldn't be allowed to have guns? What goes under what you think should be regulated with guns?
I'm not very for like which guns people can have because like you said, it's not even like assault rifles aren't even the main problem. I think it's more who should have guns and like background checks and stuff because like if you look at background checks, most of the time they're free, so it's not really a bigger problem if we put those in place, which most states already have background checks and stuff like that. I feel like that's more important, especially when you look at like people with a history of violent crimes and stuff, because that would be able to weed out those people at least. So if someone who has like already hurt people in the past, they don't get a gun and are able to keep doing that. But I don't think like I said, I don't think we need to ban guns in general or ban certain types of guns. Like, obviously, everyone should have a tank or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, our problem is who has a gun than which guns they have.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't like with the so there's currently you're not allowed to have a machine gun, right? That's just
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily agree with that because I've shot handguns, I've shot shotguns, I've shot um, semi-automatic rifles before, and I mean they're fun to shoot. Like guns are like it's fun to shoot guns. Like um, and so like if I had a machine gun, I'm not gonna go and like shoot up a mall or something. I'm gonna go and mow down a tree with it because that's what I would find enjoyable to do with that. And while I can understand not wanting to have machine guns, there's also the thing you have to consider is that you just because there's bad people who are going to do bad things with it doesn't necessarily mean that it should be illegal. For example, like alcohol, like you can go and like there can be bad people who go and like get completely hammered and then go and like wreck a store or something, but that's not what a majority of people do.
I don't know. I kind of disagree with that because I get that machine guns are kind of not they're not illegal, but they're not easily had. Like I see why that would be a thing because like if you go to Britannica, they have different like information about this stuff. But when you look at high capacity magazines, when they're used in mass shootings, the death rate rises by 63% and the injury rate rises by 156%. So like I understand wanting like a machine gun for fun or for like recreational stuff, but when we look at it in mass shootings and which is like the problem in America right now, mass shootings, it's just increasing how many people can die at a time by so much that it's the bad people who are like who are actually using it and getting a lot of people killed by it. Like if there's a shooting and someone has a handgun, there's only so many people they can kill. But if they have like a assault rifle or something, I don't know if that specific one's allowed, but like something like that, they can kill so many more people in so much less time.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, then that's where the background checks come into play. And
Yeah.
if you have a history of being violent or you have a history of um you have like sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies, then
Mm-hmm.
you can't get a gun, you know?
Yeah.
So
That,
I think it just we have to find the line between what at what point are we going to let the people who choose to make bad decisions limit what everyone else is allowed to do.
yeah, but we also have to look at like though it might not be all bad people who are using these type of things, but like when you look at mass shootings between like 1982 and 2012, like 50% of that were stuff like with like high capacity magazines. So it's like it's being used for a lot of it. I know you said half of it's like handguns and stuff, but like it's still a big percent of it is people using those things that can kill a lot of people in a lot of times. Like even if 50% of it is handguns, I don't think the damage done by those handguns is as bad as the damage done by stuff that can kill like assault rifles or whatever. I feel like we have to take into consideration that even though we can't get rid of something just because a lot of bad people use it, we have to think about just how much damage those bad people can do, even if they're not a big percent of the people who use it.
I guess, yeah. But
No, sorry, you go.
yeah. Um I was just looking up something and actually handguns are the most common murder weapon in the United States. And so like firearm so in 2019 there were 6,368 people killed by handguns. And then firearms of any type except for handguns was 2,963. considerably less, and this is with every single other type of gun combined.
Yeah.
So it's not that like having this, like getting rid of assault rifles is going to stop, because if let's say we got rid of every single type of gun except for handguns, right?
Mhm.
Then you'd only be eliminating about a fourth of the deaths.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think we should ban stuff like that, mostly because the Second Amendment is all about not banning it. I just see why you could want to, because it's causing so many deaths and stuff. And, like, just the fact that, like, if you have something for self defense, which is, like, something a lot of people say for why they have a gun, you don't exactly need an assault rifle for self defense. You could do fine with a handgun. And like you say in your statistic, a lot of people were using handguns to kill people. So it's like handguns can and will defend you. So I mean, I don't see why someone would need an assault rifle for self defense. Like in my experience, is what I hear a lot of people saying for why they want a gun.
Yeah, but I mean, I I've shot guns, and I my grandpa doesn't own guns for self defense. He owns them because they're fun to shoot. Like there's multiple reasons to owning a gun. Like it's fun to shoot them. That's a big reason to own one. Like going out to a firing range, or you know, if you have a large piece of property, going out and shooting it in your backyard. Like that's just something that's enjoyable to do.
I get that. I was talking about I hear a lot of people saying when you hear arguments about whether or not we should have gun control, a lot of people bring up, oh, but it's my Second Amendment right to be able to protect myself. So I was saying in that instance of wanting to protect yourself.
Yeah, I guess, but there's saying that um, the only reason for people wanting a gun is for self defense just isn't true, because most people who do have a gun shoot it have shot it before for fun.
Yeah.
So why don't we move on to, okay, so I've you were talking about this earlier, but you were talking with someone and they said that making it so criminals cannot get guns is a is like secondhand racist is like a secondhand racist policy, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with this, or do you disagree with this?
I think I think it depends on what you're thinking about because like I can see why it could target minorities and stuff like that if it's targeting people who are in crimes. But if you're thinking about just domestic violence or violent crimes in general, at that point it's not about a racist issue or anything. It's just like the fact that if you did commit it, then there's like a viable reason for why you shouldn't have a gun. It's not like obviously gun control laws originated from racist like ideals and needs and wants and stuff. I don't think right now when we're telling people to get a background check, I don't think that the background check is inherently racist because it doesn't matter if you're a minority. If you've committed violent crimes, you're still committing violent crimes. You still hurt people, and we don't know if you're gonna hurt someone else. It could be a white person. It could be a black person. It could be anyone. If you've killed someone in the past, who knows if you'll use that gun to kill someone again? Or I don't think murderers would be allowed to just like leave, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And so that is a good point, but you have to look at the fact that there are people who will go in, rob stores at gunpoint, and say, "Give me $1," just so that they are arrested because they're homeless. And being in prison is a lot better than being out on the streets.
Yeah.
So, does that mean that that person who once had no money and their only option was to go to prison in order to survive, that once they get out, that and they're able to pick themselves back up again or whatever, that they should not be allowed to own a gun because they had to do what they had to do to survive?
I can see why that can come off as racist, but like we're just looking at it from like a third person point of view. you don't know why that person did it. Like even though it was because they were poor and because going to prison was a better option, we don't know about everyone. So I'm not saying that we did it because of racism. It's just like hey, let's say they pick themselves up and they're doing fine. Do they really need a gun though?
I mean, you can
Good.
only go so far up the totem pole, and typically, if you're going to end up in a lower economic area, and typically that's where there's more violent crime, is in these lower socioeconomic places.
Yeah. I can see why it can turn into a race issue, especially when it's targeting people who have had criminal past and stuff like that. Especially because like that person in the example, they weren't trying to kill anyone. They were just trying to get a better life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why it can become a race issue. Or in New York, they have I'm pretty sure they have like the strictest gun laws or one of the strictest gun laws, and you need a permit there, but you can only submit the permit Monday through Friday in person from like 8:30 to like 4, something like that. It's between 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like works a 9 to 5 job, they wouldn't be able to go in Monday through Friday and submit that permit to get a job. So then it's targeting people who don't have a flexible job or would be able to get stuff like that. So like I can see where gun control laws can turn into something that's oppressing the lower class or minorities.
Yeah. And then there's also the the thing where, the drug laws, where we're now looking back, the drug laws that were placed and put in place in the 90s, and we're now realizing that these laws, while not meant to be purposely racist, whenever we implemented them, they disproportionately affected the African American community and other minority communities that typically live in poverty. And while that wasn't purposeful, it ended up being this huge thing.
Yeah.
And so then we get to, if you've committed a crime and it was because you had to do so in order to survive, and then now once you're out and you have a home, you can't even get a gun to protect yourself, and while you are living in these poor areas that typically do have higher crime rates.
Yeah, but also you got to look at the fact that like when we look at getting a gun for self-defense, only like in 2000 between 2000 and 2011, only like less than 1% of victims actually protected themselves with a firearm. So like when we're looking at that, like what percent of people are actually protecting protecting themselves with the firearm? Or if you're looking at like the low income places where let's say they feel the need to protect themselves, aren't they protecting themselves from someone else who might have a gun that shouldn't have a gun? Like the background check would get rid of that threat though.
You can still get guns illegally. Um,
Yeah, I know, but like
they did a study with criminals. They like interviewed criminals to see like what percent of criminals who possessed a handgun had acquired it illegally, and it was 9% of those inmates had acquired it through theft, and 28% had acquired it through an illegal market, such as a drug dealer or a fence. And so that
yeah,
means like 37% of people, of these inmates who possessed a handgun, possessed it illegally. So that
yeah,
means that it's definitely possible for them to be able to get these guns illegally. And the only reason, and at least this is my opinion, but the only reason why whenever you look at a crime, the gun is typically like owned by the person and it was obtained illegally was because it's easy to get a gun. And that if it was harder to get a gun, then they would just go get it illegally. Like, it's not, making it illegal doesn't get rid of it. It just makes it so we understand who has guns. It's the only
yeah.
thing that it's doing.
I see that's where my problem because like I want there to be gun control. I want there to be background checks so like people with violent crimes can get it. But then there's also the fact that it's disproportionately affecting minorities or the lower class. And obviously, I don't want that. I don't want people to be affected by stuff like this because of their race. But like then there's also the part of me that's like I don't think people who have like let's say like domestic violence issues in the past like I don't want them to get or anything like it kind of becomes like which one are you gonna give up? Which one like would do you want it to be racist, which sounds awful, or do you want like people who are not being targeted by that just slipping by because we're not putting in place because of the other people it's affecting? You know?
Yeah, that is very true. Um, let's move on to the next thing. All right, interpretations of the Second Amendment. So I'm gonna read off what the Second Amendment, like a quick summary of what the Second Amendment says, so that way we can get a so a well regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is what the Second Amendment says. So what do you think that means to you?
I believe it means that the citizens, anyone can have a gun whenever they think they need to or want it, and that the government can't infringe on them and like restrict who can have a gun or like what gun you can have. That way, we can always have like a state militia anytime we need.
Yeah. Um and so do you think this amendment is still relevant today?
I feel like it's relevant in the fact that we should be allowed to have guns and that it's like our right to have it that the government can't take that away. But I feel like we need to think about it because back then guns were very different from what guns are now. And just like society in general was different back then. So I think it's okay to make not make amendments to the amendment, but like regulations in a way like background checks, right? I don't think background checks existed back then, but like that's something a lot of people can agree are a needed thing and are okay. So I feel like we can have small things like that and kind of not regulate isn't the right word, but like look at what exactly the Second Amendment means.
Yeah. I I agree to that to a certain extent. I think that the Second Amendment is something that is a truly American thing. I don't think that there's really any other country that says that you can have a gun and the government can't do anything about that. And I think that
Yeah,
that is what may not may not necessarily be a good thing, but I think that in all instances of being good, but I think that it can be a good thing because it means that because America was built on the idea that people the government can only do what the people want it to do, and that
yeah,
the moment that the government is no longer providing its purpose of serving the people, then the people must take charge and say that, hey, this is not okay and this is what we want out of our government. And if not, then we're going to have to form a new government because that's what we originally did. And that was the original ideas of forming America.
yeah. I feel like it was really important to them and why it's such a big part of America because like there would have been no way for us to stand up to Britain or to like get away and be our own country if we didn't have the means to fight against them in any sort of way. And let's say we didn't have guns and we didn't have anything like that. There's no way we can like if you're talking like I don't know, like a military standpoint, there would be no way for us to stand up for ourselves or do anything. So I see why it's so important and why so many people are very like, we need to have this amendment in there. It cannot be taken away.
Yes, because whenever we originally put this amendment in, it was built as a safeguard to make it so no matter how powerful the government got, this is something that we would we would always be able and have access to, and be able to take charge and be able to overthrow a corrupt government if it should ever
Yeah.
arise.
Yeah, and that's why if you look at like a lot of like leftists or like very far left people would be very pro gun because they don't want it to be in a situation where we don't have guns and can't rise up or anything.
Yeah. And that's also why most right leaning people are pro gun, is because of they want to be able not only just to defend themselves in case of, a bad person coming in, but in case of the government becoming too powerful and us not being able to do anything about it because they've taken away our ability to defend ourselves and taken away our ability to say this is what we want with the force of a gun, you know?
Yeah. But I feel like when we're looking at that and like why we have guns, we also need to like reevaluate if we realize that a big problem in today's society is not us against the government, but like also the fact that now it's a lot of us against each other and a lot of like mass shootings and stuff. Like if you look at 2019, I'm pretty sure it was like 417 mass shootings just in that year alone. I'm saying 2019 because 2020 there was like a lot of weird stuff happening.
Yeah.
Like we need to think about that. Like back then when this like when the Constitution was written, we weren't having mass shootings like that. We didn't have people with the ability to do that and go into such crowded places and just like school shootings, for example. Like that stuff didn't really exist back then, so they didn't really think about it when writing the laws and stuff. So I feel like it's okay to have our laws change as we keep going on because now there's different like variables and stuff.
Yeah. That's I definitely agree with that. Um what are your opinion on militias?
Militias, like say people getting together and stuff.
So a militia is a military force that is raised from the civil population to supplement a regular army in an emergency, or a military force that engages in rebel or terrorist activities in opposition to a regular army, or an able-bodied civilians eligible by law for military service. So a militia, there are two definitions of militia. One is if our military service is not strong enough, then a civilian population is able to form its own army and protect itself. Or
Yeah.
it is a rebel or terrorist organization that opposes the army. So, do you think that under the Constitution, we are allowed to get together and oppose the army? Because
Like technically we are.
under the Second Amendment, we are allowed to form a militia, right? And a militia is a
Mm-hmm.
military force that engages in rebel or terrorist activities. Does that mean that under the Constitution, we are allowed to get together and go against the government or go against the military?
I think it depends because it's saying if you look at the Second Amendment, it's saying like being necessary to the security of a free state. So it's not like you just decide to go do it for fun. Like there should be a threat or something happening or like a reason where we would need a militia. So it's not like I don't think the Constitution's telling us to just get together and like try and kill the military when we feel like it. I feel it's like the social contract idea. Like if the government is not doing what it should be, if the military isn't doing what it should be, then we have the right to get together, like fix that and make sure it's corrected.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a good definition of, yeah. Um, so, that being said, this year on January 6th, the Capitol was stormed by a militia. Do you think I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Okay. Do you think
Okay.
that this militia, because it by definition it was a militia that formed. Do you think that this militia was a constitutional militia?
I don't personally think so because I don't think that the election was rigged or anything, or that it was being treated unfairly to like a big extent. And I feel like by doing that, they were infringing on other constitutional rights like democracy and stuff. Because pretty sure that's a day when votes were being counted and stuff like that. So by them, by saying they were constitutionally doing a militia, they were still infringing on other rights like democracy and letting the people vote for stuff. And they weren't allowing that system to take place because they felt as if it was unfair. And I don't personally think that it was like, I don't think it was okay for them to do that. I can see why some people would interpret it like that. I don't think it was, but
So these people that stormed the Capitol, they were fed the lie that the election was rigged by the people within the government. They were told that Donald Trump had won, and that people within the government, Democrats within the government, had changed the election results so that he would lose. And that's what these people believed with the bottom of their heart. Doesn't matter what the truth was, and that he lost, and that Trump lost, and that Biden was the one who actually won. These people genuinely believed that um, the they the states, the freedom of America as it is, was in danger, and that so they had to form this militia in order to, you know, free America.
okay, I get that they believe that, but like it's like main things you learned in like English class and stuff. Like you gotta know what's true or not, like truthiness and stuff like that. You gotta know what's true or not. So even if they truly believe that, the rest of the country was probably hearing these same things going around on social media or the internet or wherever, and we knew that it wasn't true, and we knew that the election wasn't being rigged like that. So like I understand that they felt like they were defending the country or defending democracy, but just because they felt like that doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean that that's what was actually happening. So like I understand why from their point of view they would think it's militia, but like if you're looking at it from an outsider point of view, this group of people stormed the Capitol to stop what was happening for like the election process. Just because they had false information, which anyone could have heard of, doesn't mean it's okay for them to do that. They should still be held accountable.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to put that in and see what you had to say
Mm-hmm.
about that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Do you have anything else to add?
I think I'm good.
All right, cool. Um, if you did enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing. If you have any ideas that you'd like to add on to, please consider putting them in the comments down below. I'd love to read through those and maybe even mention them in future videos. If you have any episode ideas of what we could talk about next time, feel free to also put those in the comments. I'm currently working on putting up a Discord server, so that way you guys can get together and talk through your own ideas and have debates with other people, and maybe even be in future episodes. Again, thank you for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you all.